Well, welcome back to the podcast, Stephen Brandwayn. And we're going to jump right into a question for you. What is the biggest obstacle to meditation? And how does one move through the initial block from busy life to sitting down with themselves in stillness?
Well, thanks for having me back. Great to be here. And I love the dive in. I think the biggest obstacle to meditation is noise, mental noise, mental chatter. Most of the clients I work with, they say, I can't meditate. I just can't because I sit down and I try to do it, but my mind just doesn't stop racing. And that's pretty much the objective of meditation. Learn how to quiet the mind and how to get into stillness. It's pretty much a tool. And once you get into meditation and you understand the concept of, quieting the mind and stillness, then it should become a practice that you can carry through the day. It's not just those few minutes that you're meditating, but it's how can you be present? And it's about presence. So I guess the obstacle would be noise. Absolutely.
And what I'm hearing is it doesn't just mean sitting down once or twice a day in this structured time, right? Even when you're eating or when you're driving, like infusing awareness into the situation where you otherwise might not. That, from what you said, is the key to like integrating it into your day-to-day practice.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Our minds get triggered. Our lives are constantly getting triggered. Sometimes they're small triggers, sometimes they're big triggers. But when we're triggered, we're pulled off center. And acknowledging that you have been pulled off center and you become reactive. So you have a strong emotion and a strong situation that keeps you from that center. And then you have the bounce back muscle. Bounce back muscle is what I call that capacity to take a step back, become the observer, and understand, okay, I've been triggered, and right now I'm in a state of trigger, right? And you can make a choice and you decide, okay, I don't want to stay there. Neither act or talk from that place of strong emotion, because when you act and talk from a triggered state, it's not the best version of you. But if you have the tools and the understanding and the awareness of, okay, I'm triggered, I'm just going to take a deep breath and disengage and bounce back to center. And when you're back from center, you can still acknowledge that situation that happened, that strong emotion that happened, but you're no longer acting or speaking from that triggered state, but now you're in center. And from center, when you act and speak or decide not to act or not to speak, which is, always an option, that is wholeness. That's center. Meditation is a tool that can help you understand, okay, this is myself calm and present, and this is myself not calm and not present. And it's just a tool that helps you bounce back to center, yes, through the day. And the more you practice it, the better you become at it. So whenever you're triggered through the day, you don't have to sit down, into a meditation moment, but you already have the understanding of how the brain works. How can you come back to that stillness?
Hearing you talk and the language you're using is just fascinating to me, because I realize how much we create like a perceived duality within ourselves when we use this language of meditation. The I that is observing the other part of me that is reacting. You've created this observer and the observed. You've created space within this idea of self. And it's amazing what can unfold in that space, but it's also crazy that we're even able to do that, to have this perception of ourselves by another part of ourselves that is doing the perceiving.
That's beautiful. That's consciousness. That is awareness. That's exactly what it is. So when you are the observer, you are not your mind. You are not literally your identity. This is something that you have built. And this is all an understanding, an image of yourself in the frontal lobe of your brain, of your experiences, of who you are. But that's not really who you are. You are the observer. And that capacity to observe yourself, that's metacognition. When you can, observe yourself from the observer standpoint. And if you have your monkey mind triggered, I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of monkey mind.
Yeah, I think it came up last time as well. So yeah.
Monkey mind is that restless mind, that nonstop ruminating about the past, worrying about the future, but you're always triggered. And maybe it's even worse than getting triggered, but sometimes you're emotionally or mentally or both hijacked. And we're emotionally and mentally hijacked. It's just horrible. So understanding that that's not you, that's just a lens of who you are in that moment, but that doesn't define who you are. Your essence, your unique frequency, your true self, that's who you are. And that's the observer. And it's really powerful to understand the power of the observer.
Where do you see the concept of soul coming in here? Because we were talking about this, the essence, the true self, and then the monkey mind. And it shows up in a lot of different areas. In Judaism, we talk about, at least from the Tanya perspective, the godly soul and the animalistic soul, and this duality between the two. Do you use that language, soul, at all? Or are we using words that kind of don't do justice to the underlying meaning behind them when we're talking about the same thing at its core? What's your thought on that?
You're tapping into something that I love. And I talk about soul all the time. But I'm wary that the word soul to many has a connotation of religion. Mm-hmm. And they just kind of create this barrier to it. But at the end of the day, mind, body, and soul. And soul is that piece of us that is, to me, God. We are all God in a tiny little piece, in a very respectful way. God is the absolute all. He's the creator of all creation. But all creation has a little piece of God in it. Because at the end, to me, there was God before creation, and God manifested into a realm of space and time. And that's what we call creation. And in that creation, in the best of our understanding, we have the universe. And as part of that wonderful universe, there is me. There's me, there's my environment, there's planet Earth, there's everything, stars, stardust, etc. Every single thing has God intricately. Now, to me, the part of me that's God, that's what I call soul. But some people just navigate better with the word energy. Mm-hmm. Okay, but yeah, it's basically what moves us. If you want to call it, animal energy or animal soul or human soul, there's a lot of very interesting material on this. What level of soul are you at? They say in Judaism that we have, I think, 5 levels of soul. Mm-hmm. The lowest one is the one that simply moves us. When you're on autopilot, you wake up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and you're moving. That's kind of the basic level. You're not even thinking. You're just kind of just moving. But that's important to be alive. You need that to be alive. Then the level 2 is that kind of personality. What makes me me? It's that little part of that soul which makes me unique and special. That's the frequency.
Nefesh?
Nefesh, exactamente. Muy bien. Nefesh, exactly. That's me. And now I'm a little more in tune and conscious of my individuality. So individual consciousness, and then we have collective consciousness, and then we have the consciousness of creation. But yeah, absolutely. Soul, it's what keeps us, moving, alive, connected. And as we work on ourselves in personal growth, personal development, and we connect to that essence, that true self, that unique frequency, we're tapping into our soul. Absolutely. And when we talk about the observer, tying it to the observer idea, the observer is the soul. That is who you are.
Okay, I'm gonna go another layer deeper here because what you said brought up some thoughts of mine. We go to the highest level of soul, Yechida. It it's it means singularity.
Right.
It means complete oneness.
Right.
When, at least from the Jewish perspective, when God created the world, there was the act of tzimtzum that happened where God pulled back his overwhelming essence for there to be space for the world to be created. And it's mind-boggling to me that, because this is an act of love in a way, and yet it created the veil between what we see as Yuda or Stephen and our true essence. And it makes life difficult at times when we descend into those lower levels of soul, and we can't see the full picture of where we're living within.
Yes, and so we have to understand there's a human experience, right? And level of awareness can be extremely broad. That understanding of oneness, of it's all connected, it's one source, it's ultimately one and the same. Yeah. And our minds actually do have the capacity to understand that we are part of this just one being, right? But, and this is beautiful in design, it's not really a problem or a difficulty. It's a beautiful part of our design. If we have a tool in our brains that allows us to cut from that extremely broad awareness, because otherwise you couldn't function. You'd be like, wow, you know, it's not just a flower, it's cells. And it's, you can just get hours and hours admiring anything because it's just beautiful. But then you would forget to eat. You can't make it to the grocery store and buy food. So we need to have that capacity to go from extremely broad understanding to extremely narrow focus in that awareness. The problem is not that. The problem is getting stuck all the time in that extreme narrow awareness. Because if you're in the extreme narrow awareness of this is my life and this is it, and so many people live in there, and they just become isolated and so boxed into this tiny world that ends here. And this is it. This is my life. That's all I know. No, there's much more to it. So having that, understanding that, yeah, this is me, my individual consciousness, and this is my reality as I understand it. And even that, I have the tools to shift. I can shift my reality and I can change the terms. Is it hard work? For sure. But this is all a construct, all a perspective. But we can step back and step back further, and we can get to the place of singularity, of oneness, for sure. But it's a tool that humans have to function and be able to live our lives, to be able to go from broad to narrow and back to broad. Just don't spiral and stay in the narrow all the time. That's my point of view.
Yeah. When you were talking, I felt that the belief I just shared, that it's difficult and that there's separateness, is actually a feeling of stuckness, right? And that perspective shift, that maybe it is a beautiful thing that we can go from very wide and broad to very narrow when we need to, is it's a gift. So
it's beautiful,
yeah.
Special, perfect design. It is, for sure. And that said, don't stay stuck, because you can stay stuck if you don't entertain the wowness of creation, the awe of creation. I mean, creation is amazing, man. You just take it into that huge realm of what is.
Yeah.
13.5 billion years ago, and you are 80 trillion cells, your brain 180 billion cells, and you're all perfectly functioning in perfect flow. and you're interacting with this space with me. It's just that in itself is just mind-boggling. It's amazing. It's beautiful. So yeah, have that capacity to zoom in and zoom out. But don't stay zoomed in. That's when you get stuck.
Yeah. I want to, now that we've done a deep dive, shift over into the work that you're doing. Share a little bit about that. How are you helping people get unstuck? How are you helping them rewire?
Well, the first step is awareness, raw awareness. So the framework that I use with my clients is 4 steps, basically: awareness, intention, alignment, integration. Everything starts with awareness, raw awareness. If you don't know what's happening or what's going on, you can't fix it. So it's stop, pause, and really look inward and question everything and just go into that raw awareness. And a beautiful part of that work in the awareness portion is the darkness, your shadow. We have been, as a society, mostly teaching, that the dark side, ignore it. Don't pay attention to it. You sweep it under the rug. If there's bad stuff happening, just pretend it's not there. Make a good face, have a good attitude, power through, get some strength, and, just...
And I want to say that's exactly the meaning of the name behind my podcast.
Same word.
It's the shadows in the name Shells and Shadows. It's that which we aren't willing or sometimes can't face that is part of us, but we walk around and it's always following us, and yet we can't look at it. And so I love that you touched upon that, because the goal here in these conversations is to do that, is to look at the shadow, to face it.
All right, beautiful. That's right. That's my sweet spot.
Great.
So the shadow, we have what I call the 4 henchmen: fear, doubt, shame, and guilt. And the master henchman, the judge, which is, we're currently always judging super hard our others and ourselves. We're like so bad judging ourselves. And then we have fear, doubt, shame, and guilt, which they don't teach us how to address these, but they're part of who we are. These are intrinsic part of our wholeness. Embrace them, sit with them, sit with what are you afraid of? What are you ashamed of? What are you feeling guilty of? And sit with it, one at a time, really unpack it. And when you start becoming friends with your darkness, that's when wholeness starts to happen. That's raw awareness, and that's radical ownership. Own all of your light, but own all of your darkness, because it's part of who we are. And when you start to understand it, embrace it, acknowledge it, yes, love it, and yes, be grateful to it, because they're teaching you something. They're preventing you from doing maybe stupid things, or from possible, chaos. But these are very intrinsic parts of who we are, and our survival mode doesn't know the difference between an actual lion when it's a threat or daily stress. It just takes us into, this survival mode, this sympathetic nervous system, and that fight or flight is constantly trying to peek in. But that's the raw awareness. And from raw awareness, the next step is intention. Be clear on what you want and make it be coherent with your true essence. And then when you have awareness and intention, now you have a path.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have alignment. Okay, so who we have become is who we have been taught, programmed, and shaped to be. And that's fine. Here we are. This is our point now, here and now. And in this moment, embrace all of you, your wholeness, the good and the not so good, everything. Fine. But now, who you are becoming, choose. So by definition, by choice and not by chance, design who you are becoming. So you have your reality mindset today. It's like, okay, this is the version of me I'm becoming. So how do I go from point A to point B with alignment? So you catch yourself drifting back to old habits, old patterns, old behaviors, and it's okay. With a lot of self-compassion, self-love, and no judgment, be the observer, disengage, and bounce back,
Right.
bounce back. And the more you do bounce back, the bounce back muscle, it's like going to the gym. It's like any muscle. The more you practice it, the stronger it becomes and the easier it becomes. And then the more alignment happens, all of a sudden you have integration. And integration is when you start becoming who you are on the inside with who you are on the outside. It's a really nice, simple process. I call it the II tree. II tree, that's AI, but I narrowed it down to just II because AI has the artificial intelligence. So,
Yeah.
but it's AI, awareness, intention, alignment, integration. And that's the framework I use with my clients.
I want to dive into the first step now, because that's often the hardest, is facing the darkness with awareness. One thing that I actually heard while listening to another podcast that I was recording, and I've heard it before, but it hit for some reason, was that all of these emotions, like fear that come up, they serve or have served a purpose in your life at some point or another. They protected you when you needed it most. The problem is, how do we let go of that when we no longer need to be protected? And I think that it's extremely difficult to do that when we see fear, which is trying to help us in some way, come up, and we reject it. Think about any friend that you have, and every time you tried to help them, they push you away. That would create a lot of friction. That would create a lot of tension. So like being able to, like you said, love those parts of yourself that, yeah, it may create some discomfort, but there's only good there. There's only pure intention there at the core level. That's a game-changing realization for me and for one's inner growth.
But the problem is not letting go. The problem is holding on. I mean, I would say that raw awareness is just doing the work. It's not going to be easy. You have to do the work, but you have to sit with it. Like literally sit with it and be like, all right, fear, come. Is that the biggest one that's popping up? Yeah, fear. So imagine you're the pilot of your life. You know, you're driving your car and you have this humongous fear in the front seat. It's like this huge monster. It's like, all right, buddy. All right, just one at a time. Come here. And you sit with fear. Be like, come here. What? Tell me, what's on your mind? What am I what are we? Because ultimately, this is part of us, right?
Yes.
It's me. It's part of Steven's fear. Okay, so me, Steven, the observer, I'm looking at fear. I'm like, okay, what am I so afraid of? Oh, I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of... Okay, don't go fast. One at a time. Failure. Why are you so afraid to fail? And just unpack it. Oh, because people are going to think, I'm a loser. Okay. And people think you're a loser. And what's so scary about that? Well, I don't know. Maybe then well, it's not that scary. And then what else? Fear of failure. That I don't know. I'm going to end up on the street. Are you really going to end up on the street? Is that what you're afraid of? You becoming a bum on the street because you failed miserably? You're not, man. You're a smart guy. Okay. So you start to go through each of these one at a time. Tell me everything and sit down with your fear. Fear of everything. I'm feared to be alone. I'm feared to be abandoned. I'm feared that my wife is going to leave me. I fear that I'm going to go broke. I fear that everyone's going to find out that I'm an alcoholic. I don't know. Just sit with it. So unpack them all one at a time and write. Just take out a notebook and just write all of your fears. And really into each one of them, dive in. And when you do that, all of a sudden, it's not that scary. The worst of it all is avoiding. It's pretending it's not there. But when you sit with it, be like, okay, one at a time. Come on. We have time. And just sit with it. And then, like, all right, is there anything I'm afraid of? No. So you take that huge monster called fear in the front seat and you just slowly make it smaller, make it smaller, make it smaller. And then when you can't disappear it because it's part of who you are. But when it's small, being, all right, buddy, you're going to the back seat because you're not riding in the front. I want to be peaceful and calm. So you can't be in the road. Who's next? Here I am. Shame. All right, what am I so ashamed of? And you sit with shame. And then you see it, and then you sit with guilt. And you sit with all four of them, fear, doubt, and doubt. Doubt's a huge one. Sit with doubt. Why am I so, self-doubting? Because, imposter syndrome. Okay, so I don't know it all. Who does? Everyone fakes it till they make it. So, okay. So this is me trying my best. So you sit with all of those, and then the judge.
Yeah,
Okay.
tell me what it's like to sit with the judge.
The judge is horrible, man. Everyone's judge has their own style and personality. Some of the judge is super aggressive. Some judges are extremely humiliating. Some are passive aggressive. So you sit with your judge, and your judge is like, dude, well, what is your judge telling you? I say, yeah, who do you think you are to be doing a podcast? Like, really? All those amazing people doing podcasts and you? Come on. So it's humiliating, or don't even try, man. So that judge is constantly putting you down, putting you down, putting you down. And you have to look at it in the face, be like, all right, buddy, this is paralyzing. This is limiting. And I'm not going to roll with it. I believe in, understanding that there are risks involved in living, but I did not come to this world to live paralyzed and limited and just, isolate myself in a box. I'm going to trust my skills, my passion, my learning, my education, my power, my authority, my agency. And hey, I've got this. So all of you, and I understand you're trying to protect me. All of these dark sides, all of these, henchmen, they're trying to protect you. They're trying to prevent you from, not being loved, or, this is all about survival ultimately. But you sit with all of them and you shrink them and you shrink them and you shrink them. And as you shrink them, you empower yourself. You empower your light. You start to trigger these parts of your brain, and you start to convince yourself of your skills, your power, your authority, your agency, your ownership. Because you're not pretending that your judge and all of these are not there. You know they are. You're acknowledging them. And you're even loving them. You're like, come here. All right, we're all a team.
Yeah.
This is Team Steven. All right. Thank you guys, but I need you all to stay small, and I'll go to the back seat. Because up here, I'm riding with passion. I'm riding with empathy. I'm riding with perspective. I'm riding with focus. I'm riding with clarity, with creativity, with creation, with excitement, with motivation. I want those in my front seat.
Mm-hmm.
You guys can go in the back.
Yeah.
And when they peep and when they show up, you're like, all right, buddy, what do you want now? And just sit with it. And it becomes kind of this fun, even game. So that's the raw awareness. And you can go and look in the back and the past and be like, all right, that was that. And that was traumatizing. And you can just kind of linger and spin it. Sure, go, do it. But ultimately, that already happened. And now you have a choice. Radical ownership. If you want to be a victim, poor me, this happened, and look at me, then own it. Choose it. Be like, I choose to be a victim because it's the best thing that has happened to me. I feel seen. I feel pampered. I feel, people take care of me. So I'm just going to play the victim card because it's the best thing that I can do for myself. Fine. Own it. But if you're playing the victim card, so I'd be like, oh, I have pity for you. No way. Pity, love? Mm-mm. not for me. I'll give you a lot of love, but not pity love. Pity love, no. You're better than that. We're all better than that. So it's radical ownership. And from there, all right, okay, that raw awareness. So now that I'm coming, you're shedding all these layers and you're starting to be more in touch with that true essence. Be like, okay, so let's give it intention. That's kind of the next step that I was mentioning.
Before we move into that next step, I think it's like hearing you talk about these different energies that show up, like fear, guilt, shame, and the judge. When you used the judge as an example, something struck deeper with me, that fear and shame and guilt feel very personal. My fear, my shame, my guilt. But when you personified this idea of judgment into this character, this archetype of the judge, it makes it a little less scary. It makes it feel like it's not clinging to you. It's just this character you have to engage with, and that everyone has to engage with, because it shows up in everyone's life. I like that, and I think that's helpful because it makes it easier to approach.
And it's just part of you. It's not you.
Right.
When you give it a character and you understand it's just an archetype, it's just this one lens. It's one. But if you give it too much power, it just grows and grows and grows. And it just becomes this thing. It's like, I can't do anything and I'm not good enough and I'm not worthy, etc. Yes, personify it. Give it a character and understand it and talk to it. Be like, hey.
Give it a seat at the table as well.
Dude, yeah, absolutely. It's an important seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, come here. Let's have some coffee. Let's have a drink. Let's talk. What's up? Why are you so harsh? What's up all day? Judging everyone and me. It's like, dude, take it easy. I get it. You're really good at your job. You're really good at judging. But back off, man. Because there's more of us in the party. And I don't want you just kind of piloting all the time, just yourself.
So someone's now sat down at this table, they see all the characters at play, and then we get to intention.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Intention is being aligned with who you really are. It's choosing, designing, defining who you are becoming. So let's say, imagine this line. It's kind of easier to understand that way. So there's your reality mindset here on the left, right? This is what you believe to be true. This is your paradigm, and this is what the way you live your life right now. This is it, right? If you take it a step to the right, it's like, what does that reality mindset is made of is about your beliefs and your paradigm. So those belief system, that's a belief system. And that's pretty much also very kind of, set into your ways.
Mm-hmm.
A little further in beliefs, you go into patterns, behaviors, and thoughts. Those are easier to challenge. If you go further, then you go into actions and words, and then your actions and your words are your identity. Okay? Trying to change your identity from here is super hard. It's like, okay, this is not who I am anymore. Okay, but what do I do? Right? Actions and words come from emotions. Emotions come and go like the waves on the beach. It's like in and out, and they just come, and they're kind of unpredictable, and whatever show up, they're very valid. So those are emotions that trigger your actions and your words. But if you take it a step back, okay, let's look at patterns. Let's look at behaviors, and let's look at, thoughts. You can start to understand, how can I maybe rewire those? But it's hard. So you go back to beliefs. Challenge your beliefs. Yes, you can challenge anything that you believe to be true. Because ultimately, from the moment you were born up until this very moment, you've been taught and you've been programmed and you've learned, and now you've developed this kind of reality mindset that are built on all these beliefs. So let's take it a step even further back to reality mindset. That's where the rewiring is easiest to do. So this is my reality mindset today. And I'm like, okay, so I sit down with you and I'm like, Yuda, what do you want to change, to shift, to let go, to clarify, to engage, to start, whatever it is in 6 months or in 3 months? I like the 3 months and 6 months. We're good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. I like the 3-month module and the 6-month module because it's enough time for you to actually shift and it allows you to slip. But if you're committed to doing the work, to leveling up and to showing up, then you can really, and you're like, all right, like my clients be like, I'm feeling stuck on my career. I'm feeling stuck in the city I'm in. I'm feeling stuck in my relationship. Or I have these kind of really bad habits on procrastination. Or there's something that I want to work on. So let's pick something specific. This is you today. What does that you in 3 months or 6 months look like? It's going to be very similar to this version of you. But let's pick what's pressing you most. I'd be like, you know what? Procrastinating, let's say, right? I'm like, okay, tell me what a version of you that doesn't procrastinate look like. Well, I started my podcast. I've been thinking about this podcast for years, literally years, but I just push it down and push it down and push it down. I'm like, okay, let's go with that. Okay, so if the version of you are becoming has a podcast, let's say in 3 months, you already started and launched your first episode. That's our goal. What are the steps from here to there? So that now we have an intention. The intention is starting that podcast. And if you do that, you're going to rewire many aspects of your brain as far as procrastinating. Because now this idea of, I say I'm going to do something and I don't do it, starts to be challenged. So it's this positive kind of reinforcement. Your negative self-talk starts to become positive self-talk. So let's do that. So I work with that idea and what are the steps that we're going to get to. So now we have an intention. The awareness is there. The challenge is the procrastination that I push, aside what I say I'm going to do. And now with that intention, we're going to work. And we start to rewire your brain. And also, I'll add to that, start with your body. Becoming the master of your body can help you become the master of your life. And I'm going to do a quick parenthesis here, because when you have an exercise, workout, nutrition protocol that you say, I'm going to do this 3 times a week and I'm going to eat like this, every push-up, every, rep, everything you do, and you get to the gym and you get to the gym and you get to the gym, you are sending these messages to your brain and your neurons are saying, hey, this guy says he's going to do something and he does it and he does it and he does it. Repeat, repeat, repeat. And we're rewiring your brain. And now we're starting to align who you are becoming with who you are today. And we connect that protocol for your body mastering together with one important, let's get that podcast. And we're going to get that podcast off the ground and running. And all of a sudden, you rewire your brain. And that alignment, that feedback, that bouncing back to center starts to integrate in the new version of you are becoming. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Steven decided to start his podcast, guys.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
I had the same mental block as well, though. Like, I stopped doing this for a while. Like, after you and I recorded, I did a few more episodes and I stopped. And it did take a bit of intention setting and like the small little steps to start up again. And I agree what you're saying with small goals, small wins over these big lofty goals over long periods of time when you're not meeting them, you're actually doing harm to, you're saying, I'm not someone who lives up to my intentions that I set. But I think having that small circle of responsibility that you can completely fill rather than a big one that you can only try to fill is so much more empowering, because then you start to believe that you are this person, and it changes your entire perception of who you are. And that's the identity shift. Like, it's hard to start and say, this is my identity, and now I'm saying, no, now this is my identity. This new piece of who I want to be, that's me now. I like it. The small little incremental shifts that get you there are what really make you into this new person that you say you want to be.
Progress, not perfection. ADHD is a huge thing. So many people, I have ADHD. Everyone, so many of my clients have ADHD, and this is kind of the mantra. Progress, not perfection. And you use the word that's very important, believe. I believe this is who I am. Yeah. Oh, that's not who I am. This is who I am. It's not that black and white. We are a very complex, beautiful being. And if you want to be that person that does the podcast, then do the work. It's not going to be that easy, but just get the steps in order and one step at a time. So congratulations, you're back, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. And I felt like it was only fitting to do a part 2. We also touched on so many new things that we didn't get to talk about last time. So I'm really happy we got to do this.
I'm happy to be here. Okay, let's dive more.
All right. Take me to the next step.
Okay, so where were we? Okay, so awareness, intention, and then alignment, which is that, okay, now that I know my new reality mindset of who I am becoming, and now I have a map, and it's okay, just become that person. How does that version of me act, speak, walk, dress, deliver? What's that voice? What's the presence? The presence is huge. So presence is power. Awareness is freedom. And when you have that vision clear of who you are becoming, and when you catch yourself drifting from that version of you, it's like, oh, because, by the way, patterns, behaviors, behavior loops, thought loops, they have a very strong gravitational pull. They like to be comfortable. And when you start to challenge that, they're like, what is this guy doing? They're going to try to pull you back to bad habits or old habits. And so you have to commit, and you're going to slip. And when you catch yourself slipping, it's like, there I am again, procrastinating. It's okay. Again, slowly disengage and bounce back to center and bounce back to center. And all of a sudden, this new version starts to become a new habit, a new pattern, a new thought loop, a new behavior. And as you practice and get that more as part of who you are, just like meditation, it's like, oh, all of a sudden I can meditate. It's a practice, and I'm getting that bounceback muscle stronger.
Yeah.
And that just becomes the alignment again and again and again. And all of a sudden, the new version of you has blossomed.
Yeah. And hearing you talk about it reminds me of just how people talk about addiction in general. And there's interesting parallels here, because the tendency to fall back to those old thought patterns and loops is a dependency on them, because not doing that brings up withdrawal symptoms, so to speak, emotionally. And you can compare it to, like, you slip back into that old way of thinking, that old way of being. Yeah, that's a relapse in a way. You slipped back in, but you're still committed to sobriety from unhealthy thought patterns, and yet you don't say, well, now that it's over, now I'm going to continue to go back to my old ways. No, you take the next step. And so the parallels are huge, because it is a form of addiction in a way in our mind.
It is. Basically it's numbing. Basically. So let me kind of make a parallel here. I talk a lot about being, doing, and having. 3 aspects of our human fabric, of our human experience. But in our system, in our society, in today's day and age, and for the past, many years, it's been taught about doing, having, doing, having. And we're taught since we're kids, it's about doing and it's about having. But in my humble opinion, the foundation is the being. It should be being, doing, having. But we should be taught to nurture, feed, educate, entertain, address our being since we are kids. And from that being, let that being feed your doing. And let that being feed your having. Because if you're doing without foundation of being, eventually it's just going to start to feel empty. And you're going to have bad days, crappy days. And on those bad days, if your foundation is not your being, it's going to be hard to hold on, and you lose passion, you lose connection, you lose motivation, you lose inspiration, you lose drive, because it's kind of senseless. You're just kind of checking the box, doing, going to work, whatever it is. If you're doing from your being and you let your being feed your doing, then you have purpose. So on those crappy days, because that doesn't mean that those won't exist, but when you have a crappy day, but your foundation is still your being, you'll get through it. You'll get back on your feet and be like, all right, okay. You reconnect, you recenter, but it has a good foundation because it's something that you truly enjoy. It's aligned with your essence. It's aligned with your frequency. So that balance, that beautiful balance that we should all should look for between the being and the doing is the magic sweet spot. And then if you are aligned, usually that flow will bring the having naturally. Yeah. And that having, if that having is also a foundation is the being, then you can and having is great. Have a lot of things. But if that having doesn't have a solid foundation on the being, then it's empty. And having empty or doing without foundation both lead to burnout, to disconnection, to autopilot, and to numbing. When you're into autopilot, you go into numbing. And you can numb with alcohol, substances, religion, over-exercising, overworking, social media.
You numb with having.
You numb with having too. But it's okay to have, but
when it's a numbing,
when it's not your identity,
right?
When it's not just to have more than your neighbor, to have more, and in a comparison. Oh, now I have, but dude, if that's the purpose, just to have, then you numb with having more and doing more. But that's just numbing. So ultimately, addiction, it's because you become addicted to any of those. It's because it keeps the noise going, because you need the noise and the stimulation to keep you from stopping. Because if you stop and you look inside, who knows what you're going to find? And we don't have the tools, or we were not educated that it's okay. Because when we look inside, it's uncertain. It's not, firm ground. Or it's interesting. It's this part of ourselves that we should nurture and feed and entertain since we are kids. But if they didn't teach us how to do it, and now we're already in the numbing, then, oh my God, I don't want to open that can of worms, because it's going to be, I'd rather not. So I just keep on going and going. It's just, a dog chasing its tail. It's a vicious circle of just numb, do, and have. Let's feed our being.
So being is the launch pad
Absolutely.
from which
for everything
doing and then having come about.